which job did you prefer, being ambassador or Deputy National Security Advisor of India?
It's a very difficult question. What if I say both?
Okay. What are the challenges in both of them, I would say?
Well, they're very different jobs, right? As the Deputy National Security Advisor, it was, the remit was very vast. You felt you could contribute sitting in Delhi to whatever you felt as ambassador was not being done in Delhi. You said, okay, now you can't blame anyone. It's you who is responsible. So I found it extremely challenging, fascinating every day, just to be a part of a system in which you are contributing to increasing India's muscle power or national power or capabilities, trying to help everyone get better and better. So it was a satisfying job every single day, because sometimes you succeeded, sometimes you did not. You knew the scale of the problems, gigantic problems India faces. So whatever you could do, so 24 hours was not enough in that sense. I mean, maybe you're not in office, but you were thinking all the time and trying to see if I can, as much as I can do in the limited time that I have. So whatever little you could do, you take away with satisfaction.
So how does a diplomat function? For example, if you're in the State Department, to be put into the Pentagon or something like that, and then here, a diplomat's job is to find solutions and build bridges, whereas one would think that in your job as National Security Advisor, you're looking at everything from a security perspective, which means cracking down on those very bridges, right?
No, it's actually the opposite.
Okay.
What happens is that in a system like ours, which is, despite the Prime Minister's best efforts, there are silos, there are ministries, they don't necessarily talk to each other as much as they should be talking. So much of my job, believe it or not, was actually diplomacy within India. To get people to sit, to talk, to find, even if we are discussing the kind of stuff we did today, I mean, what is the Indian view? What is the party view of a certain crisis or a situation? How do you arrive at that? What is your response to a security challenge or a threat? There are multiple players involved in decision making. Even if you look at, let's say, the question of the United States or Bangladesh. I mean, in the US, you have the Commerce Ministry, you have MEA, you have Finance Ministry, you have the agencies, you have so many people. So the job of the Deputy NSA, and that is why I would say the National Security Council was beefed up, was reformed, because of the understanding that in today's day and age, national security is an integrative whole. You cannot have silos. You cannot. A Ministry of Home Affairs or Defense or MEA is not the equivalent of national security. National security is more than the sum of its parts, and therefore you need that integrative approach to all these threats and challenges, which are not cannot be addressed by one single ministry.
So the National Security Advisor see, if we look at Brijesh Mishra, the first National Security Advisor that we had, he was also Principal Secretary to the Prime Minister. Now, you've worked with Mr. Doval, and he's done 11 years, I think, as NSA, right? So how do you see the two styles of Mr. Brijesh Mishra and of Mr. Doval?
Look, I've worked with all Principal Secretaries since 1995. What I can tell you is that we are very lucky as a nation, as a country, to have the best people on the job as Principal Secretary or NSA. And I've seen successive Prime Ministers. All of them have been absolutely fantastic in terms of ability and track record. But all of them have been very different from each other. The skill sets they bring, and I haven't spoken about this at all in public to anyone, but since you raised it, before Mr. Doval, you had Shiv Shankar Menon. Before that, you had M.K. Narayanan. Before that, you had J.N. Dixit for a brief few months. Yeah. And then before that, Brijesh Mishra was the first National Security Advisor after the nuclear tests in 98. Each of them has been a personality. And a huge, strong sense of what India is. The ability to give whatever you have to the job, and the trust you have of the Prime Minister. So when you watch them at work, it's a real opportunity to learn, and to also then, and you get swept away by the kind of fervor and the passion and the zeal they have, because when you're in that position, all you think of is the country. I mean, it's a platitude. I don't want to make it sound like a slogan, but it is actually true, because at somewhere in the entire system, the buck has to stop.
Yeah.
And you are a chosen person, not because completely for political reasons, but also because of your credentials. So it's a combination of your professional capabilities and the trust you have of the political leadership.
So do NSAs differ with the Prime Minister? Have you, I mean, I'm not talking about just one NSA. You've interacted with so many of them. You've worked with so many of them. So are there times when the Prime Minister may say something, but the NSA says no?
Oh yeah,
this
sure.
is not- It happens?
Of course. I mean, that's the job.
Yeah.
An NSA can never be a yes man.
Should not be a yes man.
And is never, because you will not be made NSA if the Prime Minister thinks that all you're going to do is to agree with everything he says. At the end of the day, the Prime Minister is weighing 10 options. He's hearing his cabinet colleagues. He's hearing the secretaries of the ministry. He comes back to the room. Then who does he call? I mean, he'll call the NSA and say, you were present, you heard all of them. Tell me, what should we do? You work as a team. So there are occasions, and on policies such as Pakistan and this and that, where there is a record of NSAs differing with the Prime Minister. So the Prime Minister may want something to do something for political purposes, which may suit his political ends or his political wishes. The NSA functions as the reality check, or someone who. So you have multiple functions. I mean, you first implement what the Prime Minister wants. That's your job. But you also feed back up to him and say, listen, this is not going well. That is not going well. You want this. I don't think you should do this. So when you talk of India's institutions, you have to give credit to the fact that we have actually developed these very solid institutions, and every NSA has worked for the country, and they've gone away. They've gone into the shadows after the job is done.
So when the 26/11 attacks happened, what was the impact of that on Dr. Manmohan Singh?
I think it was quite bad.
Yeah.
If you remember 26/11 in 2008, now in the early part of 2008, till then, two things were happening. One was the economy was doing actually quite well, and you were really in a bright spot. Everyone was talking about the Indian economy, and everything was looking quite good. He hadn't got into the controversies which he had gotten to closer to the Commonwealth Games and in his second term. This is before 2009. We are still talking of
The first term.
The first term. Also, so that was internally. Externally, two things were happening. Number one, he was on the top with the conclusion of the US deal, the nuclear deal. 2005, of course, and then 2008 was the NSG waiver. He had just won a very difficult vote in Parliament, defeated the left, and completely endorsed and the Parliament endorsed his US policy. So he became the first Prime Minister to actually have the sanctions removed and to have that leap of faith in the US relationship. So he was riding high on that.
And staked personal capital on that completely.
Completely. I mean, from 2005 to 2008, I would say that was his principal preoccupation. So, in a sense, he was actually the architect of the turnaround of the India-US. And the second thing which was going on was the India-Pakistan dialogue through the back channel, under even when President Musharraf was there. And that was going reasonably well. Very few people knew the details.
Satilamba and the others.
Yeah. Seem to know everything. So that was going on, and that was good, and it was with his blessings. And he was very keen to find some solution on Kashmir. And, in 2007, you started the cross LOC trade, and things were happening on that India-Pakistan, which were never happened in the past. There was some very bold moves were taking place. But then, into late 2007, after Musharraf was removed, the whole thing collapsed, this dialogue. And in September 2008, this is before November, the global financial crisis happened. So all of a sudden, you found that things were going really well. First, the Pakistan back channel and the efforts seemed to be crumbling. Second, for no fault of yours, you were faced with this classic global financial meltdown. And then, 2 months later, 26/11 happens, November 26, 2008. And for him, that was a very devastating blow because he saw the world like just collapsing because he had everything under control.
Yeah.
And he couldn't quite understand why 26/11 happened. There was really nothing that he had done. Of all the prime ministers, he was the one who believed in a relationship with Pakistan. And he dealt with the dictator, Musharraf. And so he couldn't understand why this had happened. What was the provocation? There was no provocation. In fact, it's difficult to think. Maybe today you can say there's provocation, but nothing at that time. And it was a very, very diabolical attack in Mumbai, in Churchgate, and Marine Drive. I mean, in Kolaba. I mean, these are things which no one imagined. So he was definitely completely, crestfallen. It had an impact on his.
But it did not result in the PMO taking a muscular security approach or a muscular foreign policy approach post that.
See, a lot of this has been written about.
You would have seen it too.
I saw it. So I remember that in the first 1 month or 2 months after 26/11, we were inundated with foreign delegations who were traveling all the way to India, basically to tell us and say, please don't do anything. That was the basic objective. We are totally with you, we sympathize, our tears are with you, but don't do anything. And literally begging us. So this is exactly the kind of attitude and the response which the world had when 9/11 happened. When you had an enraged superpower which had been hit in its heart, when the entire world went and condoled with America to hold its hand. Same thing happened to us. So that happened. But so that was one thing. The second thing, of course, was a lot of other things were done internally. Mr. Chidambaram became Home Minister.
Home Minister, correct.
A lot of other structural reforms took place, beefing up of intelligence, this, that and the other. A lot of it is still surviving, those steps.
Right.
But yes, this idea that you go and it was considered, but finally it was chosen not to do. But you had a very unfortunate situation, and it's a lesson for everyone today, that with the best of intention, you were kicked by the Pakistani establishment. And there the complicity is so ironclad of the Pakistani state with what happened. So I think it was in a sense, again, a defining moment. It was a double whammy for Manmohan Singh, both the economy part and the Pakistan part. And by the way, at that time, our relations with China were okay. They were not so bad. So yes.
And he could never make a visit to Pakistan, though he was born there. Undivided India, but born there. Gah.
He was born in Gah.
Gah.
Correct.
And everybody was like, okay, he is going to visit. He's going to be that prime minister who visits. But it wasn't him to do that. It wasn't in his tenure that it happened.
So I think every prime minister.
But he was never emotional about that part about, maybe he wasn't given to emotions anyway or display of it. But one didn't see that he wanted to do it. Like, at least it wasn't visible. It was people who thought that he's a person who is born there, so he may want to.
Yeah, so again, when we talk of different personalities, we were talking, again, this is a case study of someone who actually believed that India must have a certain relationship with Pakistan. It was possible, and we should do it for the sake of India. But if a person like Manmohan Singh cannot succeed, I don't see who can succeed.
Yeah.
Gujral failed, right?
Yeah.
Manmohan Singh failed. All these peaceniks, they failed.
So, it's also the job of the Prime Minister to protect the NSA to some extent, because the NSA never defends himself when there's stuff written about him in the media, at least in the years that I have seen all the NSAs. So when there were headlines saying M.K. Narayanan should be, I remember the banner headline, why is he still NSA? When 26/11 happened, people wanted his scalp, but he stayed on. Then there was the time when people said that Shiv Shankar Menon got the job of the NSA only because he became the fall guy for Sharmal Sheikh and shielded the Prime Minister from the flack that came his way during Sharmal Sheikh. So the reward was that he became the NSA. So the NSAs come under a lot of flack. Do the Prime Ministers then take it upon themselves to shield the NSA?
Not really. I mean, firstly, I don't agree with half the things you've said on these episodes. But the NSA, if you
I'm
look,
just saying the media reported it like that. Yeah.
But if you look at the NSA, if you look at the track record, you really don't have any of them going to the media and justifying their actions.
Yeah.
You don't have them. I mean, it's quite remarkable that all of them, they're such different people, such different personalities, also different backgrounds. One is a diplomat, the others were intelligence, they were DIBs. I mean, they were hardcore intelligence officials, diplomats. So they belong to different cultures, work cultures. But no one actually went out to sit in front of a camera to defend himself.
Yeah.
And so this idea that you work in the shadows is actually quite a
How much does a Prime Minister's personality impact on the NSA and vice versa?
Quite a lot, I would say.
Yeah.
A good team would be where they have established a good chemistry between themselves. It's not automatic. I mean, sometimes it has to be done. But where it happens, like Brijesh Mishra Vajpayee, Narayanan Manmohan Singh, Shiv Shankar Menon Manmohan Singh, now Doval Modi. So you could write a book on it.
The chemistry works, and you've seen all of them.
Yeah. So
that
therefore
chemistry is important, right?
my lips are sealed.
Okay. But if there's that, you have to have 100% trust in your NSA, otherwise things won't work, right?
Absolutely. I mean, absolutely. You cannot have a situation where the NSA, you don't trust the NSA, or the NSA feels that his position is being undermined by someone else. And because, look, in a day, as the Prime Minister of India, I mean, this is not a small country. You have thousands of challenges. In a day, you're making decisions every moment. Now, it is quite possible that some decisions are wrong and some are right. You cannot have a 100% record. But, so therefore, and a lot of decisions are taken in conversations. A lot of decisions are taken even by maybe a silent conversation. I mean, I don't have to, listen to you. I just look at you and I know what you want or what has to be done. So at that very high pressure
So that firewall is maintained then?
Is maintained. So the Prime Ministers normally do not also tend to get into this business of going around defending NSA. They just keep quiet. I mean, the biggest defense of an NSA is that he continues. That's the defense the NSA enjoys. That we haven't so far had any NSA being removed. I mean, of course, during the election, there was a kind of a shift from Mr. Narayanan to Mr. Menon, but so that's the biggest defense.
Because with Brijesh ji, it was like he was literally alter ego of the Prime Minister.
Yeah.
They were there all the time together, and many times the Prime Minister was unwell. He went in for surgeries and all, and everybody knew that it was Brijesh ji who was taking all the decisions at that time. And with Mr. Doval, he's obviously, very close to the Prime Minister, which is why in 11 years one hasn't seen a change in that happening, even though, he's past 80. In spite of that, Prime Minister hasn't replaced him with anybody else. So PM's PMO is extremely close-knit, isn't it?
I think so, yeah. I think, you see, the NSA's post, when it was initially created and Brijesh Mishra was the first, those are difficult times because, as Principal Secretary, he was doing what NSA is doing today. But then when the job was bifurcated, because we went nuclear and then the nuclear structures were created, you needed to create a post which would service the India's nuclear weapons program. And that is how the post of NSA was born. So the first few years were difficult, because how do you segregate something which was integrated for decades? And that process took some time to stabilize. Today, the functions of the Principal Secretary and the NSA are much better defined. And then in 2018, because of the more complex challenges that India faces, there was a very fundamental reform of the National Security Council system. And that's when I also joined. And so today you actually have a serious National Security Council apparatus, which you never had before. You had one for 20 years, from 2000 till 2018. But, it fell by the wayside. Again, because of personalities, because of many other factors. But today you have empowered it in many, many ways. So it is in fact a reflection of all the complex issues we have discussed that you need. So in the PMO, the NSA and the Principal Secretary, both, I would say, occupy a very unique position in terms of access, in terms of proximity, in terms of trust, and also in terms of being empowered. Because they command lots of layers below them. So what typically happens is that they have a fairly good sense of what the Prime Minister wants. So they are the communicators of those decisions. But they also feed up to the Prime Minister.
And the smooth functioning of all of them working as a team is extremely important for the Prime Minister to succeed, right? It's
important. So therefore every PMO is also very different. A PMO is not a ministry. It's a direct function of the personality of the Prime Minister and, interestingly, of the Principal Secretary and the NSA. Because they are all human beings. They are all individuals. They are not like robots. So every PMO is very different from the other. But the objective is the same.
I must tell you, sir, the first time I met Brijesh Mishra was like, there was this long table and I was a young reporter. I don't know how it happened, but I was sitting opposite him and this table, and he was saying, ab to Pokhran 2 hoga hi. So I looked at him and I said, who's this man? So somebody said, oh, if Mr. Vajpayee becomes Prime Minister, he's going to be Principal Secretary. So I just looked at him and I said, Pokhran 2 hoga, to sanctions honge hamare pe. Like, was some brainy, I was in my 20s. I was like, so sanctions. And he said, so sanctions hoga to hoga. Kya farak padta hai? And I said, oh my God, are we going to have a Pokhran 2? Really, it's going to happen if he becomes NSA or not NSA. I said Principal Secretary because there was no NSA then. So I say, is he going to become Principal Secretary? So फिर Vajpayee will have Pokhran 2. So then everybody in the table was like, nahi, he's just saying it, not going to happen. And then of course Brijesh Mishra got up and went to have a smoke, which was something that he did all the time after dinner. So he didn't have dessert. He got up to have a smoke. And this was all this conversation. So I looked at him with renewed respect that, okay, so if this is the man who's going to advise the Prime Minister to have a Pokhran 2. And lo and behold, it did happen. And it was like, oh my God, I'll never forget that Ashoka Hotel dinner that we had. But so a Principal Secretary or a National Security Advisor wields a lot of power, right?
Oh, of course. And someone has to wield that power. You can't run a country of 1.4 billion people and expect to secure national security for this vast sea of humanity if you do not have someone with the right brains and the right, it's a very critical job, and it's in a sense, I don't know how we manage without one.
Yeah,
in the past.
Yeah,
and it's just as well that this was created. It's just as well that you empowered, and it's indispensable. I mean, I don't see any Prime Minister in the future being able to govern without a national security advisor.
Namaste, Jai Hind. You're watching ANI podcast with Smita Prakash.
अगर हम उसको मस्जिद कहेंगे तो फिर विवाद होगा. The issue is, टूटा है क्या भारत?
400 पार का मतलब ये है कि संविधान खतरे में है।
क्या हम लोग ये निर्देश देते हैं कि फला को गिरफ्तार करके जेल डाल दो?
वही तो कह रहे हैं सब।
ये बेबुनियाद निराधार आरोप।
सच्चा सुनना चाहो देखो स्मिता प्रकाश ANI, it does not lie।